In this series, I'll be documenting each stage of building an app from idea to getting our first paying customer. I'll be talking about building, marketing, and scaling. In this video, I'll be going over our app idea and actually building it out. Okay, I'm going to briefly explain what the app idea is. So basically, we're targeting something in the health niche, and specifically what that is it's not a calorie tracking app. What we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be making something for peptides. So people who are using peptides, one of the things they have to do actually is they need to measure out their dosages, and this is very, very tedious, but it's very important due to the sake of, overdosing and that type of stuff, making sure that their cycles and their dosing is correct. So we're going to make something that's along the lines of this app that allows that as a core function and as a feature of the app. And what we're also going to do is we're going to create a homepage, library of peptides, and other features, which I'd like to call an MVP plus. Now, the reason why I've targeted this category and not gone for a generic calorie tracking app is because, one, this is in the health niche, which is pretty dominant in the App Store as it's quite big. But two, peptides is very, very niche on its own, meaning compared to calorie tracking apps, you're going to find less of these apps compared to that. And if we can use that to our advantage, knowing that the Play Store ecosystem is around 2 million on iOS, 2 million active apps, in which you can find people to use your apps, which your app will rank better in ASO due to less competition by default of this sub niche. You'll then be able to get more users. And so basically what we have done is we're also going to go for a premium pricing plan in which we will offer a free trial, and we want to really maximize this free trial into conversions. So we really want to get people to convert on our plan. And specifically what we have is we're going to have two types of plans. The first one is going to be a weekly plan of $9.99, and the second one is going to be an annual plan that is heavily discounted, somewhere between 50 to even 80%. So this could potentially act as a decoy pricing compared to this right here. That is basically our setup, the gimmick, the generality of what the app is going to do, how much we're charging. And I've already covered this in previous videos, but you can check them out on why you should actually be paywalling your apps rather than providing it for free. But in short, the reason why is even though we'll get less users by default compared to a freemium app, or you're going to filter out to users who actually are meant for your app. So you're really going to target your ICP, not people who want to try your app and then delete it a day after. These are people who are really invested in our app's idea and its use case. And given the fact that we're in the peptides niche and these are quite expensive, our ICP should be obviously someone using peptides, but also they're going to have the money for this. And so if they have the money for that, we can charge it for that. So what happens there is that with our ICP defined, we're going to have a greater LTV, lifetime value. And how that works is users who actually use your app, they're going to stay for longer on your app. So they'll pay you for longer rather than cancellations and refunds and no conversions from freemium models. So that is the reason why we've gone for a premium gated plan, and that is our whole plan. Some of the technologies we're using, like tech stacks, is we're going to be using React Expo, and we are going to use these two tools as well. So we're going to be using these two tools right here, Revenue Cat and Superwall. Now these are very pivotal, I'd say, for mobile apps. Reason why is Revenue Cat, we're going to use this to track and actually handle our subscriptions, as well as they offer a free kind of plan. However, 1% after 2.5K MTR. So when you start making 2.5K a month, they're going to take 1% of your profits. And Superwall does the same thing, except what Superwall allows us to do is taking the data from Revenue Cat and seeing what is working and what's not, specifically in our onboarding process and paywall. We can then apply changes to help boost those metrics that might be lower and bring them up to help users actually convert onto a paid plan. And what Superwall allows us to do is make these changes like this. And the reason why that matters is because when you do a change, especially for the iOS App Store, you need Apple to review your app. And so each review takes maybe 1 to 3 days, but you never know, right? Holidays and any other things could come in the way. So you have 1 to 3 days, and on average, that's around 2 days right there. So imagine you're looking at your data and you need to change a bunch of things, which keep in mind, you're not going to do maybe once or twice. You might do this generally over and over. Even when your app is thriving, there are things you could potentially improve on. So imagine the amount of changes you want to make in a single month, say, for example, right? And you want to make 7 changes. Well, that's 14 days just waiting for your app to be reapproved and put on the App Store, right? Superwall negates this because our paywall is actually with them externally, so we can change it while not having to worry about Apple constantly reviewing our app. And one of the cool things they really offer is they already have some sections for templates specifically on their onboarding and paywall. So these are specifically for paywalls, and as you can see, you can really filter from, high converting ones, onboarding, special offers. So a bunch of these, right? And we can really use these ones. So specifically, you'd want to really use either these two right here, or you want to even do some onboarding. So yeah, that's a bunch of free stuff right there. Specifically, here's the paywall sections and some pretty good stuff. So definitely worth to look at. But anyways, in this video, I'll be solely building the app. However, I've kind of already done that to a certain extent of getting the initial project set up. Specifically, I already got Claude over here to research for me on what this app should do and all that stuff. Then what I did is I already gave it to Claude Code, and it has built the app in React Expo, and we can actually take a look at what it's made. So yeah, this is what the app looks like currently. As you can see, this is today. This is meant to be the home page, but for one prompt, this is what it's added. So again, this is the unit converter I was talking about earlier, where you need to really calculate the dosage based on your water and the actual peptide dosage amount. And so this really speeds things up. And we also have the library of peptides right here. And then finally, we have our tracker. Now, I'd say there's a lot of problems. First of all, this should be a homepage, a dedicated homepage. And I think that we should add more of action buttons, right? With either the homepage in the middle or a plus in the middle to add more action buttons, right? And then today doesn't really make sense. There should be a home page. And do you notice that on a lot of these pages, with specifically these three right here, there is an inefficiency in how the space is actually used, right? There's not that much space being occupied on a lot of these pages. And so we really want to fix that. So for initial setup, this is not bad. However, there's plenty to improve on. So now that we've identified some design issues and what we want to really do, what we're going to get is we're going to start redesigning this. So starting with the home page. So I'm going to tell Claude to change today to a home page with a home icon and put that in the very center, or put a plus in the center for action. Then we need to get started redesigning. Give me a prompt for the today page. Is now home page. Let's redesign accordingly to more. We wanna use more modern fonts here. We don't want to use this JetBrains font right here, right? We want to really invoke some sort of premiumness to the app, right? Because again, our ICP, they're ones who have peptides, right? No one's going to use this app if they don't use peptides, right? And so being that it is a costly expense for that, and then to get to the app, we want to really invoke some premiumness to the app to make it really look aesthetically premium, to then portray the effect of backing up our pricing. So basically, I've given this feedback for Claude. However, I didn't tell it to redesign. What we're going to do is we're going to handle the design for this. Claude has set up the initial app to give some skeleton structure with designs, but now we're going to really tailor our designs for each page. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Google. We're going to go to this app called Glamour. And what we're going to do is we're going to redesign the mobile apps by ourselves. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna log in real quick. So Claude has acknowledged my design changes and it's given me a pretty thorough prompt. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back into Glamour and basically I'm gonna just select Sonnet 4.6, toggle the mobile icon, and we're gonna redesign that page into a more structured homepage that can be more applicable. So I'm gonna ask Claude to give this prompt to me for every single page over here. And then what we're going to do is I'll come back and I'll show all the new redesigns. Okay, so Claude has given me the redesign prompts, and as you can see, Glamour has made them now. A bit of the rendering kind of broke, but as you can see, this is a new home page. So compared to the Today page that had absolutely no occupancy of the space and really didn't tell you much other than maybe record a file, way more contentful with a lot of stuff going on. The dose calculator, you can actually see there's more visuals, so you can see that that's supposed to depict a syringe, right? How much milliliters you're taking, your filters, as well as how much water you add, and as you can see, compared to the current one, this just looks like a calculator. Moving on to the library. Library is very, very lengthy, and that's due to the JSON of how much peptide information we're storing. Going back, we can see that, it talks and gut healing studies. We want to link scientific data. We also want to make sure that this is not medical advice, medical information, because we're just using this app as a tool for them to store their peptides and what they're doing, their fitness, resulting in that. Next, we have a profiles page. Now we don't actually have a profiles page, but the thing is, having a settings page here makes no sense, absolutely no sense. So this should be a profile page that goes to your settings. Now, one thing is, Claude instructed it to put it like this. However, I think that's not good because of how long it is, right? So I think what we should do is we should use some sort of hamburger on the top that then descends into these categories of integrations, your settings, your legal, and then your support, and finally signing out. That would be much more structured and much more easier than having to scroll pages and pages. Next, we have our track page. Now, our track page is absolutely quite lackluster and monochrome. I mean, it doesn't really tell you much. If you go on it, right, you can't even go back. So we want to really add more visuals to it. So I really like this matrix kind of a created of your dose calendar. Really show all of this to the tracking part of the app, right? Not only are you monitoring and logging, you're actually tracking through time frames, right? So you have a current streak, then we show their symptoms in this trend-like format. So that's pretty good. Then their weight loss or other fitness they might want to track. Finally, where they inject, and then the weeks, and then more stuff, right? And so I think it does a pretty good job here of conveying the designs. I think it's way better, way more visual, and there's more to see, and then they actually make sense compared to the current ones. So what I'm gonna get Claude to do is I'm going to give the React code for all of this, and I'm going to just tell Claude to replace everything with it. And then I'll come back and then we'll show the updated app and how it looks. Now that we've integrated Glamour's designs, we can now see the more visual uphaul and change we have in terms of designs. As you can see, we now have a dedicated homepage that shows the amount of cycles, vials, and then quick actions. Right? We also have this plus button right here. We can go do stuff like log a dose, right? Obviously, more refinements to come, but it's definitely a better starting position than the other prototype design we have. As you can see, we have our index library. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we need to really cut down on the buzzwords with scientific research related stuff. We want to make sure that it is still appeal to our ICP at the end of the day, but that is some pretty good stuff. I really love our track page. We have the days, the streaks, the adherence. Can filter by that. Finally, the profile page, shows the stuff. And we could keep this for now, though maybe a hamburger into drop-down collapsibles would be nice. But now that we have an app, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start marketing early. And what I mean by this and what you should do is utilize methods like building in public. So what you also should be doing is something called building in public. This is where you go to specifically apps like Twitter have this a lot, but maybe other social medias. But what you're going to do is you're going to document what you did on that day. And what this does, it creates early traction and more brand and visibility around the app that you create. So I'm going to make a generic tweet. What I do now is I've taken some screenshots and I'm just going to drag them into here. And so a tweak could be something as simple as this, but notice one key thing I've done here. I said day one of building Tropin with Glamour AI. Notice that I don't talk about the app at all, what it does, what it serves to do, what niche it is, any of that stuff. I leave it very broad and open-ended, and maybe people who want to see the app can take a look within the designs. However, the reason why I do that is because if someone is really curious about the app and what it does, they would leave me something maybe like a comment below saying, what is your app? What does it do? And the reason why this is intentional is because it drives more engagement and more traffic with the tweet. So when you have stuff like this that leaves it open-ended and people want to know what you're building and then they write a comment, you then drive more traffic to your tweet, and then the algorithm boosts it as it shows it across timelines of non-followers so other people can see it more. But I hope this was insightful for you guys, and this is going to be a series where we go all the way till we get our first customer that actually pays us.